Alright, leading up to this lesson, we've been working a lot with various kinds of graphics, digital photos, images, pictures, clip art, you name it, we've been working with it. And when you do work with a number of graphics or images on a slide, sometimes you want them to line up perfectly. Now you can see on this previous slideshow that we used in the last lesson that we've got 2 photos per slide and they're lined up perfectly. They're centered on the slide, both vertically and horizontally, and they're lined up with each other as well. So one option is for us to do that ourselves and try to line them up by clicking and dragging images until they look like they're lined up, but we've also got some tools built into PowerPoint to help us do that. So let me show you what I'm talking about. Follow me up to the Office button, give that a click, and then open. And from the Lesson 7 folder of your exercise files, we're going to open up Intro 7J. Click that one and then open. So here we've got a couple of slides to experiment with, not really a presentation per se. But this first slide you probably recognize from previous lessons. And you can see over here on the right hand side we've got some butterflies. Now if you do remember this slide, you probably remember too that these butterflies are lined up one on top of the other over here on the right hand side of the page. Now one option for us, as I mentioned earlier, is for us to manually click and drag these until they look like they're lined up and spaced perfectly. So that's relying on us and our judgment. I'm going to just move them back out of order here, because another option is to use the built-in tools for aligning and distributing these objects evenly. So the first thing we need to do before we can align them with each other is to select them. So with one selected, if I hold down my Control key, you can see my mouse pointer turns to this little plus sign, which means I can click on other objects to select more than one. Now another way to select is just to marquee select a group of objects by being outside the imaginary borders around all 3 objects. So I could click and drag from out here across and down until they're all shaded, and when I release, you can see they all get selected. Alright, so with them all selected, now I can use some of the tools, and you can see Picture Tools up here is selected because we have multiple objects selected. So with these selected, we're going to click on Picture Tools, and in the Arrange group, we've got some options for moving images in front of each other and behind each other. We're going to look at that in the next lesson. We've got a rotate button. Here we've got a button for grouping objects together into one if we wanted to. Again, we'll look at that in the next lesson, but this is the one we want right now. This is our align button. So if we click that, you'll see we've got a number of align options. Now before we talk about all these align options and distributing them, down here we'll have a check mark next to Align Selected Objects or Align to Slide. And the difference here is, do we align them with each other or do we also align them with the slide? For example, if I wanted to align them vertically right down the center, they would align one on top of each other perfectly by their centers, but they would also align perfectly down the center of the slide. So I'm going to make sure that Align Selected Objects is the one that's checked off, not Align to Slide. And I'm going to come up here and I'm going to align them down the middle. Not down the left-hand sides, not down the right-hand side, but right down the middle. So give that a click and boom, there we go. You can see they're lined up perfectly down the middle. So regardless of their size and shape, the middles are lined up perfectly. What's not happening here is we don't have even spaces in between these two and these two, and that's what we call distributing. So we're going to go back up to this drop down, give it a click, and we're going to go down to distributing. Do we want to distribute them beside each other? No, we want to distribute them vertically. So what it's going to do is take this top one and this bottom image, and it's going to move the middle one perfectly in between those two. Okay, so let's try that out. Distribute vertically. Give that a click. Look at that, equal amount of space between each of these objects. So we deselect by clicking outside of the objects on the slide and know that they're perfectly lined up. Now if we want to move all 3 of them over to the right hand side without misaligning them, no problem. We'll marquee select them again, and then we can go to any one of them with, as long as we see the 4-sided arrow, and click and drag across to the right. Deselect by clicking outside, and there's our slide. Okay, so that's one option. Let's go to slide 2 now, and we'll work horizontally. Well, the first thing I want to do is look at this guy here. We've got 4 race cars 3 of them are going left to right. This guy's going the wrong way. So we need to fix him first. So all we're going to do is just click anywhere once on that image. And the entire image, even though it's grouped and it's made up of several objects, it looks like one image. And now we're going to go back up to our drawing tools. Now, because this is not an actual picture, it's a drawing, we have some different options. We have drawing tools. So when we click on this, you'll see in the arrange section here, we've got those buttons showing up, but we've got a bunch of other options here as well. So let's go to our rotate. And we're not actually going to rotate this in a circular fashion, but if you click the drop down, you can see we've also got some options for flipping. Flipping vertical will flip them upside down. We see a live preview of that. Rotating is just going to turn them around. We really want to flip it horizontally. So we click that, and now all our cars are facing the right direction. Alright, let's marquee select these guys now. Just going to click and drag so they're all selected. And let's go back up to our align button now. And this time we want to align things horizontally. So we can go by their middles. That might not make sense if they're not the same size. Because they're cars, we want all their wheels to appear on the same plane. So this time we're going to align them by their bottom. So give that a click. Alright, so they're all lined up on their bottoms. It looks like we've only got 3, but they're overlapping one another. I'm going to move this guy over to the right, and you can see because they're all selected, they all move. Now if I deselect and move this guy back, I'll just click, and to make sure he stays on the same line, I'm not going to use my mouse, because then I could move him up and down. I'm just going to hit the left arrow on my keyboard. That way I know he's going to be on the same plane. Now with them all selected again, so let's marquee select everybody, we're going to distribute them. So we go up to our line drop down. This time we're going to distribute horizontally. So we click on that. Aha. So one of our cars was right on top of the other. Now they're all distributed evenly on that same plane, lining up their bottoms. Okay, so we deselect by clicking anywhere on the slide, and that looks great. Okay, so that covers aligning and distributing objects. Next we're going to look at how they stack one on top of the other, and we'll look at grouping as well.